Hello, and welcome to my presentation. My name is Victor Peralta. My edX username is Victor P1357. My GitHub is V, my last name Peralta 55. Today is 4/19/2025, April 19th. This is a presentation on the CS550 Cyber Final project. I selected to use um, the Fortinet SSL-VPN um, compromise that it's currently going around. That it's a compromise that happened actually a few years ago, but it's still to this day still being exploited. And the devices that were compromised still had some part of the code that was injected. So we'll discuss this in the further slides. Okay, topic introduction. Like I said, this is on the recent Fortinet SSL VPN persistent issue. And I picked this because it's currently being impacted. Currently work for a company that we actually have a handful of Fortinet that we have had to patch and make sure that um, there's they're not currently being impacted by this. So one of the areas that I wanted to make sure I covered were vulnerabilities, management, network security, specifically with a something as important as a firewall on a company, and then operating system security, obviously, which is running on the firewall itself. We're going to concentrate specifically on the Fortinet, specifically on the firewalls for this brand will be their firewall, which is a firewall is a crucial device that is often one of the most important pieces of networking equipment because it was actually blocking traffic from the internet and making sure that none of that external traffic that it's not supposed to be getting access to a certain part of the networks. Um, it's being held off. It's inspecting traffic and it's as well acting as the gateway for any inappropriate traffic that is trying to get in, as well as the appropriate traffic that's supposed to go on and come back in. Um, this specific attack was targeting VPN access, so virtual private network, so remote access that an external user or a home user is trying to access a internal network resource at the office. So in this case, we have an organization that has a networking setup on the side that's facing the internet. They have a Fortinet firewall, and a IT person has set up a SSL VPN, and that SSL VPN is basically allowing external users by using a username and a password to be able to authenticate into that network and get access to network resources. Uh, and the initial way attackers got in was a standard process for many breaches, finding the firewall, which was a known security flaw. We'll discuss the CVEs on the next slides, but Fortinet had apparently tried to patch it in the past as late as 2022, and later on in 2023 they released a few CVEs and they released a few patches that were also supposed to patch that. Um, but the critical part of this story is that the patches that they released were not strong enough, or they did not actually cut off any of the hidden backdoors that the attackers had left behind. So that was an important part of the patches. Patched some of the vulnerabilities that were open, but did not really do a good job in actually cleaning up some of the data that the attackers left behind. Um, this actually left some hidden files that were left in the root directory of the firewall's OS. They were hidden as read-only access files to the system. So the core problem of of the breach was never actually addressed. We're going to go to the next slide. So the initial breach that originally impacted Fortinet's, I've listed them here. We can see CVE 2022, um, and 42 475, and CVE 2023 27997, and so on. CVE 2024, which is the most recent one that we're addressing. Um, an attacker started finding vulnerability targets. They scanned the internet, looking for basically public exposed IPs. Through this scan, they were able to determine um, by determine if it was a FortiGate firewall, listening basically to the specific ports that they were scanning, ports like 443, HTTPS. Once identified, they typically crafted malicious data directly to the public IP and ports, targeting known vulnerabilities, and then successfully triggering the flaws, allowing the attackers to achieve remote code execution. Um, and basically, they were able to gain access to the to the firewalls themselves and initiate it remotely, um, at a remote location through that. So one of the things that we're dealing in still today in 2025, which was the um, the firewalls that we thought had been patched, and the patches had been released, but well, they failed to clean up, that they still left files behind that still gave the attackers persistent access, or persistent remote connection to that. Um, they used a standard Linux/Unix feature called symbolic link, and Symlink, which is essentially just a pointer or shortcut file. Crucially, they place this malicious Symlink file within a directory in the VPN services, and things like language packs, part of the regular file systems that they actually were able to put this type of files to get access later on. Um, the file, the symlink didn't point to another language file. It actually pointed straight to a root, like I mentioned earlier, to the root directory, and they did it basically at a very top level. So the rest of the operating system, I guess, when Fortinet did their scans, they didn't really assess that portion of the OS, and they kind of oversaw that. Um, but Symlink was a separate file that was inserted by the attackers after the initial breach, meaning that it was remote when the original CVE code was patched. So, how did Symlink act as a backdoor even after the firewall was patched? So the SSL-VPN service was still running and reachable from the internet onto its public IP. And the attackers could connect to the SSL VPN service. While they couldn't trigger the original patch vulnerability anymore, they could still perform actions that cause basically the Fortinet's VPN process to try to read the files and then possibly include um, some path where the malicious symlink was hidden. So they were able to trigger that hidden file, well, hidden to the users, but not to them obviously because they knew the path. But they were basically able to execute that, and basically were able to get access back to the devices. The access was generally read-only, constraints by the SSL VPN process itself, and allowed them to read, but completed basically the bypass and all the patches that they had performed. And I've added in this slide a the attackers that came via internet, public IP, then SSL VPN process. They read the file path, file link access, and then the data filtration. So that will be all. Thank you for your time. Thank you.